Alexandra here is a frequent speaker and founder of the relationship-based link building agency Digital Olympus. She also runs a digital marketing conference in Europe. Besides that, she's regularly contributing to leading digital marketing blogs, including Moz, Search Engine Journal, Salesforce, SMExaminer, and many more. Digital Olympus is a relationship-based link building agency that gets you links that you can be proud of. Alexandra, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much for a warm introduction. So guys, I'm really happy to be here today. So I want to let you know that if you have any questions during my presentation, please feel free to just, to let me know, and Bernard will pick them up and we are going to discuss them just in the middle of my presentation. So my today's topic is why should quality content and links go hand in hand? For sure, I prepared some case studies because we do a lot of link building. We have very different type of clients and so on. So I tried my best to make it as informative as possible. But first of all, I just want to make a quick intro. So you know that I'm the founder of a link building agency. I contribute to various blogs. You can Google this out. I'm also a frequent speaker. I think I spoke more than 6 times at Brighton. I saw very nice conferences here on our continent in the UK. And also we have 2 things in common between me and Brighton. I saw, well, at least, yeah, I think, well, besides, that I'm a frequent speaker, I'm also right now, I live in Cyprus, and that is an island, and the United Kingdom is also an island. So basically, that is very much it. Right now, it's honestly, it's insanely hot in Cyprus, and I'm just melting. And other than that, I think in my life, I have 2 biggest passions. So that will be link building for sure, and I have 2 horses. So let me introduce you to Barbie. She's such a sweetie nose. So anyway, going back to, to the main thing. I guess, that is, the main question here, whether there is a way to substitute the lack of, quality content with links, for instance, because a lot of people question this and actually try to do this. But I wanna hear your thought on this. So if you can, leave yes or no in a chat, and then I can look through this, that will be cool. So do you think yes or no? Okay. Yeah, thank you, Donna. I think so as well, most probably, but we'll see. Okay, so the short answer is actually yes, you can. Everything is possible, especially if you're really dedicated to this. You want to really, try this, and you have a lot of resources, you know how to build quality links. Then we've seen that it's doable, but the long answer is that in reality it depends. I hate saying so, but it depends too. How competitive a particular search engine results, right? So is like, when you must probably know how competitive your SERPs is, and whether you need and whether you have any extremely high authority website there. And if you see them, then most probably there is no way to substitute lack of quality content with links, just because those kind of sites, they've already built their presence, online presence, and as a result, Google will always pick up such websites and will kind of give them priority, even though your content might be, at the same quality, might be, poor quality or even high quality. It doesn't matter actually in both situations. in the majority of cases, higher authority website, they have more priority. But for sure, if you can also build enough links to your to your well optimized content page, then you can always outrank them in kind of, not really in a short period of time most probably, but in a long term run, definitely yes. Also, if you have in kind of, let's imagine there are plenty of websites in your niche that are actually having some low quality content, but then they're all really into link building. It's not really not, I made a typo, I'm sorry, but they're all really heavily into link building activities. That's what I meant here. In that scenario, but most probably you can try to do this if you have more resources and if you can build more meaningful links compared to what they can deliver. For sure. Well, what I'm trying to say here also, it might be possible to make things happen if the quality of your content is also at the same level as your competitors have. And then that way, most probably links can play a significant role and you can try to outrank your competitors. But at the end of the day, you know what, I think it's quite pointless, just because if your content is not really on point, then you're losing a lot of hidden benefits that this actually content can bring back to your brand. For instance, I see content also, I mean, like well-delivered content as a part of your brand. And if you do really good content, the one that is well-researched, answering the most burning questions of your audience and bringing some new perspective, fresh perspective, some new angles, then that is also a way of building up your authority and becoming a true expert, not only in the eyes of Google, but in the eyes of your audience, which is way more important. And also, for sure, you can try to, ramp up, some, let's say, like quite mediocre content pages with links if you have a very well-established brand. But one more time, I don't really see a lot of value in that type of an exercise, just because the perfect formula will be always quality content and links. They should be together, and they are leading to organic traffic. And here is an example that is a client. I have to know that we are a link building agency, which means we don't really build content, but I always emphasize the importance of well-researched, well-delivered content, just because links, they don't really, they can help, they can't solve all your problems. So it's very important to do on-site SEO, including keyword research, well-delivered SEO optimized content. And then if you do this, if you do the part about, if you deliver the right type of content, then definitely links are going to help you. And that is a perfect example. As I've already mentioned, we don't do content marketing, but we have a partner agency that is called Minutia, and they did a webinar some time ago, and actually they are amazing. I couldn't recommend them more. All the clients that we are running together, they are, they are having quite the same results in terms of their organic traffic performance, in terms of their conversion rates, and so on. So this type of a website, it's a branded new one. And even though You know, I'll tell you some story about this brand. Basically, it was redesigned, but an initial brand, PRG Store, was also actually, you know, Minuccia and our agency, we kind of started nearly from zero. They had zero authority, no backlinks, and no content. So we kind of started working on this around 1 year ago, in fact. And then somewhere around February, they made a redesign. So they moved to a new website. And what you can see, basically, everything was migrated from PRG to SwagDrop. But as you can see, the traffic keeps growing. And in fact, what I love about this particular website is the number of referring domains that you can see versus domain rating. That is a very clean backlink profile. Yeah, for sure, we did this. I mean, like, we built this backlink profile, my agency, in fact, but that is a healthy ratio of the number of referring domains versus domain rating. So basically, in reality, if your website, I don't know, has a domain rating of, let's say, like 60, and you have over 700 referring domains, then most probably you have a lot of spammy sites that are referring to you, and you need to just, you know, to review them and so on. So basically, you know, that is the number basically of referring domain that more or less you need in order to reach this number. For sure, some of them are less important because not all of them have a meaningful DR. And when I'm telling a meaningful DR, I mean here a DR of 30 and higher. That is the one that is basically bringing some SEO benefits. But it's okay to have in your backlink profile some websites that have low DR, just because it's quite natural if you have good content that is ranking well in Google by searching by certain type of queries, then people can find your content and link back to it. So it's quite natural that you're going to get some links from low authority websites. But other than that, most probably, I would say the biggest portion of those links are having, like, you know, the biggest portion of these links has a DR of 30 and higher, while only some very limited number, like, well, I would say most probably less than 20-30% of them are having the DR of lower than 30. Okay, what's really important when it comes to, you know, to reaching some certain progress in terms of your SEO performance? I keep telling my clients that the main thing is consistency. And yes, on both links and like, you know, on both sides, links and content. And actually an example that I was sharing to you from SwagDrop, that is the perfect, you know, the perfect case, just because they've been working consistently with us and our partner agency, and we've been delivering consistent results in terms of predictable number of links that we agreed on a monthly basis, months over months. And I have to say that, in fact, I am a big believer that sometimes the kind of Google even looks more after the consistency of adding new pages rather than acquiring new links. It's not proven, but a lot of experts are talking about this, at least the ones that I know, and they call it a hidden ranking factor. I want to add something here, that I know some websites, I have some friends that that were quite successful when it comes to actually substituting with content some links. Just because if you can really ramp up your content marketing game and you can publish really tons of content, like let's say like newspapers, but not really the same type of content, like really in-depth, well-researched, long-form content, then eventually Google will nominate your website, just because you can, for sure, one more time, it should be delivered in a very consistent way. So you have to deliver tons of content. When I say tons of content, most probably I'm talking really about 100 pages, 100 newly published pages per month or something like that. And then it's going to work like a snowball effect. And technically, it can substitute links. One more time, most probably you might face some problems at certain point, just because most probably you don't really want to write literally about everything because your business is too specific, right? You can't really be a newspaper in terms of writing about, I don't know, today about fashion, tomorrow about going to be, you know, beneficial for your business. And as a result, this strategy can only be, you know, beneficial for those type of websites that are trying to generate as much traffic as possible and then those websites, they know how to monetize it. So for affiliate projects, let's imagine, it's beneficial. But for more specific businesses, like, you know, let's take my business, like link building agency, right? Do I want to write about topics that are too far away from link building? Not really. And then if I want to solely write about link building, the number of topics is quite limited. And then the niche itself is very competitive. So I can't really rank well. So it's kind of, you know, I have a lot of limitations, right? I'm kind of limited. A lot of walls are kind of, you know, I try to do this, but then I don't really want to do this because I don't really have, you know, my business needs, they limit me, right? So I'm kind of in that type, you know, I have to basically to survive by kind of using a combination of most probably links and content, just because I want to rank by particular set of keywords, not really all possible set of keywords. But if you're into running affiliate projects, or if you, like, you know, some people they run Amazon you know, related projects, then that might be something that you want to give a try. Okay, so I want to share with you a few examples, as I promised. That is, you know, real stories of my clients. So that is a website. Oh, this is not really even a client's website. That is our own website. We run, it's digital marketing related. It's not really an affiliate website. At the moment, it's like kind of a content project. And we've recently, you know, acquired a community on Facebook, and we connected this website with this community. But one more time, it's not really a real brand. We don't really have a social media presence. We don't really have clients, just because there is nothing to buy there. And so as a result, Google must probably understand this by looking at our website. There is no, I don't know, like, I don't know, basically service pages, right? There is no way to register there. So Google understands this is not a real business. That is an informational project. And as a result, if you know, there was a Google update that happened at the end of May, if you're familiar with. And that is what happened with us, right? Google was quite, you know, quite into our content, because we were doing everything on point, and we were supporting this website with, you know, with links, but not really doing it massively. And as a result, most probably the number of links that we were delivering wasn't really enough in order to substitute the lack of brand authority. So as a result, we kind of got this this decline in traffic. Right now, we are slowly recovering, but still, you see what's happening here, obviously. And maybe next time when Google decides to unleash a new update, most probably we are going to have quite the same picture here. Okay, so what about great content, great brand, legit brand? That is our clients. That is a virtual phone system, a call system, call tracking system, and basically, as you can see, the organic traffic trend is very shaky. It's not really, it was like here, growing, but then decreasing, growing. So there is no logic, I would say. You don't really know what's happening next. And they've recently decided to start working with us, and we hope to see more positive results in terms of their performance. But I have to say that they decided only to go with 10 links per month. And I have to say that this niche is extremely competitive one. And we know actually a few brands, similar ones, they're direct competitors that are really into link building there. And they do a lot of links. They outsource, they do it in-house, which means most probably if they target the same scope of keywords, then those 10 links are not really going to change dramatically the situation. But one more time, it all comes down to your link building landscape. And some kind of niche, they're extremely competitive. And as a result, 10 links per month is nice, but I have some concerns about whether it's going to be enough links or not for them, especially seeing those. I would say that is not really a positive trend, because Google keeps, kind of prioritizing them, which means that right now they stabilized a bit, but we don't really know whether it's going to be a positive dynamic after all or negative one. That is also the problem. And I have to add that when it comes to link building and expecting some results from your link building campaign, when you see organic traffic trend like this, then I would say it's going to take way longer for you to see results. And you have to go with bigger number of links in order to really see something in the next, I don't know, well, I would say even 6 months, just because the situation is not really positive overall.
Alexandra,
Okay.
I'm going to pause you for a second here.
Yeah.
I have some questions. There's a question
Go
from
ahead.
the audience. Anonymous asks, does a strong social media presence help boost domain authority or domain rating? And if so, how?
Yes, I think so. Just because that is actually works as a social proof, right? That you really exist and you have a community. And if you really have, when we are talking about a very solid social media presence, this means that you should have the right type of followers, not really fake ones, but real users that are interacting with your content and so on. So if you go to ClearScope, Twitter or LinkedIn, that is what I'm talking about. So basically, they have real users that are interacting with their brand. And if you go to Digital Olympus, our own Twitter or LinkedIn, you will see the same. So we have, some kind of a community around our brand, and for sure it's happening. It's helping us quite a lot. It's sending a very strong signal to Google that, look, those guys are real, because they're interacting with the right type of users that are what? That are digital marketers. In fact, they are talking about link building, which is actually showcasing that we know, and their link building agency, look, there is a connection. And then social media can send back to your website users. And that is also helping, basically. That is the same as with the referral traffic, right? those users are quite meaningful just because they're coming to your website, they're interacting with your website, right? And if they spend enough time on your website, this also works as a social proof for a search engine that basically you are not only capable of doing something, of creating some engagement across your social media platform, capturing users, but also fulfilling their needs. That is the whole cycle. And
Makes
I think
sense.
definitely,
Yeah.
and I have to add that for some brands, I mean, like especially commerce stores, the ones that are actually getting some reviews from users, right? It's extremely important, just because people are leaving their reviews on their Facebook, and also actually, since Google crawls all the social media platforms, if you have a solid social media presence, then people are mentioning you, right? And that is creating a cloud of brand mentions. And the more people are mentioning you, the bigger is your brand. So I think it's extremely important. Yeah, for sure, circling back to our own website, most probably we want to do this. And actually we started doing this by, we acquired a Facebook group and we want to, do more. But there is also something behind this in our situation, because is it really going to change dramatically our story? Most probably not, just because still we are a content project, right? And even though we can start capturing users, creating some social media engagement, still that is not going to change the whole story dramatically. But that requires a solid investment then, and that is the reason why I'm a little bit postponing doing that. So that is my reason of not really going into that, which in fact, if I was really relying heavily on this website, I don't know, I was monetizing this website, because right now I'm not doing anything. I'm still trying to understand how we want to use it in reality. That is, kind of my business experiment. Yeah, I guess that will be the right answer.
Cool. Yeah, no, makes sense. I have a question about this idea of quality versus quantity, right? You mentioned in your previous slides that consistency in link building is really important. And my question is, would getting 10 links from lower authority websites, like we'll call them DA20, DA30, or DR 20 to 30, be better than one link from a website that's DR 70 plus? And then I have a follow-up to that. So how much does website content relevancy matter when building links? You could imagine, right, I'm starting a personal finance blog and I want to rank for best credit cards. Getting a link from NerdWallet, who's very relevant in terms of personal finance, how does that compare to a link from, say, the New York Times, who has a strong authority, but maybe isn't as relevant in terms of the content that they're publishing?
Great question, Bernard. Thanks for bringing this up. I really love, this perspective and how you spelled this out. So in terms of, I have to say that I've recently, not recently, I think that was a few weeks ago, I had a very similar conversation on LinkedIn when someone was actually, asking me whether it's way more important to have this one link, but from super relevant and authoritative website, or having some flow of links from less authority and, let's say, like less relevant, or still relevant, it doesn't matter, but the ones that are not really having the same authority. It seems that I would say it's going to, this situation most probably might or might not affect your SEO performance if only you can keep generating those, let's say, like mediocre quality, or let's say like low quality in terms of domain rating links consistently. Just because Google always goes into numbers, even though a lot of things matter. I mean, like in terms of like, Google understands that this website is more authoritative compared to the rest of other, but it seemed that the algorithms are still, relying heavily on numbers of, on the number of links that you are getting on the flow, which most probably might make sense just because one link is not really changing the whole story. It's a great one, right? You most probably, you can even print this out and put on your well. And, that is a great achievement. I truly, I understand. And actually, I anticipate how hard, and I understand how hard it's really to build this truly meaningful links. But most probably, you have to go with, try to find something between, right? Because numbers still matter. One link is not really going to change, the whole story, sadly. But if you ask me what I would prefer, most probably I would prefer this one link from an authoritative website, just because, yes, it's not really going to change anything today, but that will be a small brick in building up my brand. So I can use it later when I have enough resources, right? To start building, more links. And this one will really affect the future of my SEO journey, I would say. So I always try to think, okay, yes, today it's not really going to change anything. But if you start building, consider links as connections, or consider links as your neighborhood. And you move somewhere, right? In kind of in a new place, and you wanted this place be nice, your neighbors should be friendly, and you want to live in a friendly society, right? That is actually perfectly reflecting your kind of, what you feel is important to you, right? That are sharing the same perspective with you. And then let's imagine, kind of this kind of analogy. Let's put it for your website. And you're basically building an absolutely wrong neighborhood around your website. So some kind of, I don't know, even though you want to live in a particular, you want to associate your website with some particular things, then for Google, it's very confusing to kind of say, hey, this is that. But how it can be that if you have your neighbors are all kind of, heavily on drugs and so on. I mean, like, is it really a trustworthy website, or you're kind of from a ghetto? So that is the problem, right? And that is very hard actually to clean this mess. That is the problem. Once all those connections are built, once they are in place, you kind of built your kind of, you have some kind of basement, right? And then it's very hard to change it. So that is the problem for me. But that is, I'm sorry for going so kind of philosophical about this, but sometimes I kind of try to look at things from that perspective, from kind of trying to build that kind of connections so people can better understand what's going on, because sometimes we don't really understand how hard we might be hurting our brand by bringing up those ugly links from those ugly spammy websites. And even the most ironical thing for me, that people are doing this on purpose. So they're saying, hey, I want to be associated with this. And it's like, really, but that is something really ugly and not really reflecting who you are. And then you say, no, that is my neighborhood, that is my friends. And it's like, okay, most probably that is fine, that's what you want. So yeah, and circling back to a question about a link from New York Times versus very topically relevant website. That is a hard one. I'll explain. Well, most probably I will go with the link on a really authority newspaper, just because I'll explain my perspective here. It's very hard to build up authority. Even, I mean, like those type of links, you more or less, but that might be my perspective, because I know some digital PR agencies that can easily, you know, build those links from newspapers. I mean, like really meaningful, well, not really spammy newspapers, but I'm talking about the Washington Post, New York Times, and so on. But for me, it's kind of a magic. It's nearly impossible. And then I understand what kind of value such link will bring to my brand and how it can lift my brand authority. So that is something that Google definitely takes into consideration if this link is placed into the right content. So, I mean, if let's imagine I'm a link building agency, and then I might do, I don't know, a charity program for cat and dog shelters, right? And then I pitch this to a newspaper. And then I will appear as a company that is supporting cat and dog shelters. So most probably that is a great link, but does it really help me brand a topical authority as a link building agency? No, if only I'm really into running a charity organization and, you know, going up with this, which is great. I'm not really, you know, saying that is not really great. That is an excellent idea, and I love actually supporting that type of organizations. But most probably I don't really want to be featured on New York Times in that type of association, or at least I just will ask, you know, can we please not mention my brand? So can you please just, you know, write down that is just me, Alexandra, doing that, you know, just because it's very confusing, right? Google picks up this link and then think, okay, but does it really, you know, have something with link building? Most probably, if only she's so good in link building that she was able to land this link, but that is too complex, right? So most probably it's not going to be beneficial in that way.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was awesome.
Okay, I'm sorry for being so wordy.
No, it's okay. It's okay. There are some other ones, but I figure I'll let you continue, and then we can visit them near the end of your presentation.
Yeah, I'll try to wrap this up very quickly, because all questions are very interesting, and I wanna answer all of them. Okay, so this one is a great example of, you know, everything, you know, in place of poor content and not enough links, but a very good solid brand. I removed their name on purpose because I don't really want to hurt anyone, right? So the main thing that actually we have been working with them for quite some time, and we've been building enough links back to them, but they weren't really taking care of content, even though they have been you know, updating their content, adding new content pages consistently. The quality of those content pages are quite questionable. The length of those pages around, I think, in kind of the most, you know, the most promising ones are the ones that are reaching 1,000 words. But there are some that even having less than 1,000 words. And That is a digital marketing agency, to be precise. And the niche is extremely competitive. And the only thing that is actually helping them and kind of saving them and still kind of, giving them some priority, that is Australia. And people in Australia are not really into link building. So basically that is their biggest competitive advantage in this situation. But one more time, I'm more than certain that we can, reach way better results with them if they spend more time on producing meaningful content that is kind of, having enough words, sharing something new, and well optimized by clear scope. And the trend will be always like that and not really doing like that. And so the recent update actually, kind of punished them quite harshly. So not always links are the best solution and, kind of basically the key to your success or something like that. And you know what, when it comes to, getting, kind of relying too much on links, I would say that, a lot of marketers, they tend to forget that links are way more expensive than content, and links are way harder to build consistently and to scale them. So I would say that if you have an opportunity to rely more on content and to put content as a backbone of your organic traffic, of your SEO strategy, then you would never regret about this. That is how I see, the right kind of, you put, first of all, the right type of content, then you support it with links, but not in an opposite way. And even though, I'm from a link building agency, right? So for me, kind of building tons of links is quite easy. Yeah, we can do that. But still, I don't see much kind of value in this type of exercise, because at the end of the day, most probably the results will be quite disappointing or inconsistent. And so one more time, why not to build something that you're going to be truly proud of, right? So, and that's where you need to have great content. Okay. I just wanna touch this. I don't really want to talk about this a lot, but I just wanna, and that is actually not my number. I took it from Ahrefs, and actually when I was creating our pricing model, I was relying heavily on this. And we have, around this number, our average price per link is kind of a little bit more than this. To be precise, it's $370, which is very close, right? And the date is quite outdated. So right now we are in 2022, which means most probably people reconsidered their pricing models, especially those that are selling links, and taking into consideration the current economical crisis, most probably they reconsidered it a few times more. Anyway, I wasn't really, touching this, and I don't really see any kind of benefits for my agency to reconsider it. We kind of set it up, and I'm happy to be where we are, just because the quality of what we do is really on point, while the price is kind of meeting the average, which is perfect, I think, when you kind of can balance on those two things, because what we kind of provide is way more than what other agencies, link building providers can do, while the price is kind of the industry standard, which is good. And if you compare those two things, for me, I would say that for sure, creating very well researched SEO optimized content, it's not really an easy task. You have to, follow and keep in mind a lot of things. You have to have a lot of expertise, and actually writing is also a skill that not everyone has, even though you think that you can write up anything. It's not like that. Just because, you know, I used to work a lot with content marketers and copywriters, and I came to a realization that a good content marketer and copywriter is the one that has a very solid technical background. I mean, like in terms of either education or doing something, just because logical connections and how you educate your content and how you can move from one topic to another and actually affecting either in a very good way, how you can move through those things and connect them in a logical way, or can make it, awful kind of content that no one would really want to read, just because no one can really browse through that. And it's actually the and that is the reason why people that can produce really meaningful content should have also expertise in your niche, and should have a solid, they really know how to do analytical work. So that is not just, a person that can write one more time. This will be horrible. Trust me, you can go to Upwork and, give it a try, but that will be horrible. We've been there. I've been, reading through those things, and, in this paragraph, you have this, and then they're switching to that. And you're like, how comes? They're kind of like, two different topics, and they are like, put one by another, and you're like, oh my gosh, that is horrible. But for sure, link building requires more specific skills. When people think about content marketing, and one more time, I kind of understand this, just because still finding a decent content marketer is a little bit, I would say, less hectic exercise, less hectic task, just because you can see and test results way faster, right? So you kind of give a task and it's going to be delivered in some certain time frame. But let's imagine tomorrow, I'm not talking about outsourcing it to an agency, because most probably getting a sense of the quality of links from an agency, you can get it within the next few weeks after you start your engagement, if they're not going to bullshit you and tell you that they need to, I don't know, spend the next 6 months praying for links and doing something else, and then only, basically saying then, what, links are not really coming. We are sorry. But in a kind of, in a more common scenario, you can see the quality of links more or less within the same months. And the same goes to, to content marketing. But then imagine you're hiring someone in-house. Even in my agency, where we have a very well-established onboarding process, we have all processes in place, we have a workflow, we know how to build links, tons of expertise. Normally, newly hired employees, and for sure, we try to find the right one profiles that have some experience and blah, blah, blah. But we need to wait like around from 4 to 6 months to start seeing some, some real results. For sure, we are going to disqualify a person that has, 0 positive signals, and, we have KPIs and so on. But in order to become an effective link builder that is going to bring a stable flow of links, most probably it's like 6 months. And that is not really a super effective. That is the one that can do something, I would say, something meaningful, but not super, not really tons of links. So I would say, I would kind of, one more time, delivering SEO optimized content in-house seems to be way easier for me, at least. For sure, if you have an understanding of your niche, and if you have the right type of employees that really understand your product or your service, and or at least if you have, you know, if let's imagine you don't really have anything right now, and you deciding whether you wanna, and you only wanna basically choose one thing, content or links. And if you don't really have anything on your website, I would rather go with content. I will gradually build up some content, right? And then if it's kind of start, you know, bringing some traction, and it should start actually, just because normally you're going to write about different topics and targeting different keywords, not only the ones that are shooting stars in terms of their like, you know, very competitive ones, what I'm trying to say. And then you can actually, you can say, okay, it's working, right? And then you can add links, but not in an opposite direction, because it's always happening like that. I have a branded new website, and I wanted some links for what, I don't know for what actually. I just wanted some links because I just want to print them out and put them on my wall somewhere in my office, saying like, you know, look what I got, what a brilliant backlink profile, most probably. Well, that is very controversial, and I don't really understand for what, honestly. Okay. I don't really want to talk much about this. That is not, you know, that is not what I do, but I want to recommend a few resources for you. And I think we're going to upload my presentation, and you can extract those links. From from my slides. So basically, a great webinar was here also on ClearScope from Georgios. Highly recommend. Then we had our own conference, and I just added a link to also presentation. And then finally, I highly recommend Kevin and Dick, because he has, you know, very kind of, he has his own perspective on everything. And I think he really has first-hand experience. Okay, if you know who is Kevin Dick, he used to be at G2, and then he moved to Shopify, and he's a quite well-known speaker, so you can easily Google him out, but most probably you are familiar. Oh, finally, my favorite. Don't really skip this. Yeah, use your own brain and analytical skills, which mean that you need like tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, ClearScope that will be helping you, you know, showcasing some data, but then you need to make, you know, your own decisions, right? Because no one can really save your business besides you. Okay. Why I think ClearScope is a must-have tool, even though I don't really do tons of content marketing, but we do it for our own website, right? I already mentioned. So that is a page that is performing extremely well, and Google wasn't really picking this page up till the certain point, but then, you know, as always, reconsider it, you know, the current SERPs, and finally we were, you know, we were nominated, I would say. So the main thing here is that while you are like doing like this, it doesn't matter what kind of potential you have, right? Because you are not really performing, so it doesn't really matter by how many keywords you might, you could, would, or should rank, right? Because you're kind of nowhere, right? But then if you are nominated, then that's where everything, you know, yeah, every keyword basically counts. And so I want to talk about this because I prefer SEMrush here because it shows this graph, so you can see, in fact, kind of a hidden potential of this page, because we kind of, before we were basically nominated this page by Google, it was kind of not really performing at all, right? And then we started slowly to get there. And you see that the real kind of, you know, the real potential of this page, we're ranking by over 400 keywords. And if we actually boost a little bit this page, then most probably we are going to rank, I mean, like boost via links for sure. We are going to have even more keywords, more search terms. Why? Just because we use ClearScope in order to optimize each and every page. And when Google picks up this page finally, then we really have a very bright future in terms of SEO performance, because we optimize this page by as many options, as many search terms as possible based on ClearScope suggestions. And that is something that we always do. And so what I want to add here, one more graph. That is just, you know, a quick comparison, right? So you can take a look at what kind of websites are currently ranking along with our own website, right? We only have, you know, 12 referring domains. And then you see that, you know, the page that we need to outrank, obviously they have way more referring domains. But what I love about this is that you see, right, that is basically keywords, right? Which is quite interesting, by the way, because I just noticed actually there is most probably a glitch. Oh no, that is the same. It's 200. Yeah, I was looking at traffic. Okay, so that is nothing bad here. I just wanted to report about SEMrush glitch. Anyway, not today, maybe tomorrow. Okay, so what I was talking about, okay, you see, there is 200 keywords. Those pages are even performing better in terms of the number of keywords, but one more time, we're just starting our journey and we are doing way better than these pages. And then if you look at this page, right, it has way less keywords. This means that the potential, the future of this page is quite limited. And that is the problem. When we start boosting this page, right, we have way more options. And that is the reason why you need ClearScope, why ClearScope is such a great tool. Because, you know, you need to produce way less pages, but you can rank by you know, tons of keywords basically that are kind of, you know, complementary ones, I would say. Okay. I want to be very, very quick to go through this. So what kind of pages, what kind of links are the most valuable ones from my side? If you want to go into link building, I would recommend choosing, you know, that type of websites and, you know, focusing on them. Services Cloud Solutions. Just because they really do care and relying way, you know, quite a lot on organic traffic, and they receive a lot of backlinks organically, just because people are linking back to them. And, you know, that is, and Google loves, you know, all those websites that are growing quite fast, and Services Cloud Solutions, in fact, they are kind of growing very fast compared to some other sites for sure. So if you have a chance to go with links on such, you know, on such type of websites, you know, prioritize such opportunities over the rest of others. Yeah, for sure, it's very important. As I've already mentioned, that is the same. But if you can find any kind of trustworthy brands that are in the active phase of growth right now, you know, that is great. You know, prioritize such also opportunities over the rest of others. And finally, that is hard, but if you are lucky enough to get such links, then getting links on pages that have already gained some presence in search engine results. Obviously, such links have way more, they are going to bring back to your websites way more SEO benefits. So they are very influential. And also but that is hard to implement, but sometimes you might be very lucky or you can do it on purpose. So you can try to find those pages, that are actively, kind of growing in terms of their presence, like my page that I shared too, right? So most probably we are going to actually to boost it via links. And if you're lucky enough to spot such pages with the help of, for instance, Ahrefs, because you can kind of look through, they have a wrapper that is called best pages by links in terms of growth, and you can open them, right? And you can see all those pages that are getting links right now. And then you can kind of try to target such pages. I have to kind of, a quick comment. Most probably it's nearly impossible just because websites that are, building links on purpose to those pages, they don't really want to, share their link juice with someone else. But maybe you can find, some kind of your brand friends or something like that with which you can, negotiate this or exchange for something. So yeah, well, I just talking about the best scenarios, which are not always possible for sure to execute. But if you're lucky enough, if you have such an opportunity, then for sure go with those options. Okay. I just want to be also very quick here. I'm just recommending a few groups. You can Google them. I mean, like find them on Facebook. B2B boost group, link building, collab and exchange, link building word, that is the last one, is a Slack group, link building, collab and exchange community, that is our group. All of them are great groups in terms of, starting your link building journey, finding like-minded people, asking around, and also a lot of people are sharing there that they're looking for ways to partner up with someone doing some, I don't know, like doing some roundabout post or something like that. So you can find some opportunity there and start building your first links. And finally, you don't really need necessarily to reach out people that you don't know. What's the point of doing that? How about starting with those that actually quite loyal to you and familiar with your brand? Your partners, email subscribers, social media followers. They actually know you, so the chances that they're in position of getting linked back to your website, especially if you have some meaningful content, quite high. So start with them, and actually you can kind of train your negotiation skills and nail your email outreach pitches, because the main problem with all those email outreach campaigns that people don't reply, so you don't really understand whether it's horrible or not. You're just sending emails and you're kind of okay. So at least you can have a chat with the real human, which is very, very kind of, you're going to value this. Okay. So there's a few additional, just, links if you wanna can learn more. So a few of my videos, our own email outreach guide, my column on SAJ, and our own blog. Okay, so thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for giving this wonderful talk. No,
you're very welcome.
It was great. I know we're pretty over time at this point, but
yeah,
there are some questions. No, it's okay. It's all good.
Okay.
I do want to get through the questions, maybe, just some quick thoughts on these.
No worries. Let's go through them. Absolutely.
All right. Roberto asks, how do you outreach the link opportunity you've identified, and how do you get them to accept the backlink request?
Praying and begging. Okay, jokes aside. Well, first of all, what we do, we create hyper personalized pitches. When it comes to that type of personalization, it requires, you know, some extra hours of your work, because you basically, besides just, you know, using the right name, which is great, you have to also, you know, to do something beyond that. For instance, you have to basically, if you like something on their blog, instead of randomly saying I love this, and that is very much used, right, which you know, a lot of templates and a lot of email outreach features, what they do, you have to specify what you really liked. So basically what we do, we use Pitchbox, and it's an email outreach tool, and they allow to add as many custom fields as you wanna, in order to actually personalize those parts. So for instance, if I say, okay, Bernard, I really enjoyed reading Clear Scope blog, and I recently found this part that is talking about the importance of, I don't know, keyword research, and I really love this paragraph where you're talking about this and that, which is, you know, in fact, perfectly aligned with my own, I don't know, journey or something like that, and I face similar situations. So you just add this field as a merge tag, which is, you have a template in reality, right? But it doesn't really look and sound as a template because you added this part, which is hard to add, in fact. Then most probably, you know, the win rates will be still like kind of so, because they're going to circle back to you and say, hey, I really appreciate your efforts and, you know, everything like that, but we are not going to link back to you. Okay. What can you do to avoid having those replies, which is kind of promising but not really bringing links? You can say, okay, basically you can think over what you can suggest in advance. Instead of just suggesting, you know, let's exchange links, which is goes against Google guidelines, obviously, and that is going to actually hurt you and this dude website, because most probably if you do this, you're going to do it on a scale, and that is the problem. I mean, like, doing occasionally link exchanges is okay, but if you really go into this strategy, then the main problem that Google understands, okay, when you exchange links, you wanna a website with which you are exchanging links set up a link nearly at the same time as you are doing it on your website. And let's imagine you're kind of getting 200 links per month in that way. Strange one, right? You're in that way, you're creating a pattern that Google understands. So the problem is not really in exchanging links. The problem is in creating a pattern that a search engine can easily understand and say, that is a link exchange. So a workaround, right? So either you can think over what can be not related to links, right? So something like, you know, you can feature them in your newsletter. If you have really good social media channel, then social media platforms where you are very active, you can say, hey, we can do some, you know, some shout outs and so on and so forth. So basically something in return. Even like, you know, sending them back a branding swag, why not? But for sure, the easiest way is to kind of negotiate something link to link, right? But then you need to avoid a link exchange. And then what you can do, okay, if you're really in a position, you have enough resources, you can say, hey man, so what I can do for you, in order to avoid a direct link exchange, which is bad, obviously, I can feature you in my upcoming guest post. Okay, in that way, we are not going to do a direct link exchange, which is not really ideal. I'll explain why, just because you still have a connection, your brand name and your author name. So that is also still not so good. So either you need to basically find someone who is going to author this, and you're going to be excluded from, you know, from this logic, and basically Google can't really associate those links. Or, you know, you can think over what else you can do from a marketing standpoint, how can you please them, and how you can trade for links. But most probably, the easiest way is always, starting to think over in a long run. If I were a real brand, I mean, like that was looking for links, right? I would start, doing it in a bit other way. I would inviting people. I would like, first of all, I will create some marketing activities like webinars, something like that. Inviting people to those webinars and, and doing that type of activities and, kind of, not only webinars, something else, right? And then I for sure, I wouldn't expect those people to link back to me immediately. But if burnout at some point come to me and say like, hey, Alex, can you please link back to ClearScope in your upcoming guest post or on your website or something like that, I would say, yeah, definitely, why not? So you kind of need to create a pipeline of opportunities, first of all, which will be most probably the best way instead of just outreaching people. So it's all about, building some relationship, I guess, but I give different options right now. But my kind of, if I was doing it, for my personal brand, for Digital Olympus, I would be definitely trying to build some, long-lasting relationship. And then, whenever it's possible, asking for links.
Awesome. One last question. Do you have any experience with influencer content and linking? Does having a link from an influencer who is super relevant in your space the same as a regular high quality link?
But I just trying to understand whether really, like, getting a link from an influencer website that has a domain rating of 40, even though this influencer might be a big deal. Like, if you open Kevin and Dick's website, right?
Yeah.
His domain rating was probably around 40. And I just is this link is going to change the whole perspective or not? Even though, Kevin Dick is a big deal. So most probably, I mean, if it's going to be a, Brian Dean's website, I mean, backlinkers.com, then yeah, for sure, understandable. So I would say I would rather want to get link being featured in this, influencer content, but somewhere on some other website, not really on on his own website. So yeah, I guess that will be my point here.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah.
It depends.
But but on a general note, definitely yes, it's going to be super helpful. And still all those connections, they are making a lot of sense for Google. And as many connections, as many relevant connections you can create, implement, the more it's going to support your kind of brand, and building up your authority and helping your SEO journey. So yeah, but I'll be careful with those wishes, because sometimes I know a lot of people that have a lot of, kind of online presence on LinkedIn, for instance, but then they launch their website and it has authority of 0, right? So be careful with your wishes.
Yes, definitely. Well, I'd say that about wraps it up, Alexandra. Awesome presentation. I loved it. I learned more about links than I've learned in a little while. And thank you for sharing all of that knowledge and wisdom. Are there any last words that you would like to share with the people here, the people that are going to be watching the recording?
Don't forget to use ClearScope. Links are important, but don't forget to use ClearScope.
Oh, well, don't forget to check out Digital Olympus if you need some links.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bernard. That wasn't really, kind of necessary one inclusion. But thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Yeah,
Have a lovely
thank you.
day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Now, before we wrap this up, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content from the industry's best SEOs, content marketers, and content strategists. The ClearScope webinar series happens every week and helps SEO content creators of all skill levels advance their knowledge. Hope to see you. Tune in next time.